How many people in this room would agree money cannot buy you happiness?
Yeah.
Okay, how about objects? Can things buy you happiness? How many people think things cannot buy you happiness? Raise your hand. Well, if money and things cannot buy you happiness, and the studies have proven that, then what can? You know, they found out that people who win the lottery are just as unhappy or happy as they were before they won the lottery 6 months later. They also found that people who have, this is kind of gruesome, but amputations are just as happy as they were before about 2 years later. It takes a little longer to process that, but it's not about circumstances. So what is it about? It's about relationships. About relationships. It's about an inside choice. We make a decision how happy we're going to be. Experiences, but inner experiences. Jesus, that's why Jesus said, this is what's the most important commandment? He says, forget all those other ones. Just love God. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. It's about relationship. Relationship with yourself, with your neighbor, with God in you. That relationship is crucial. What are we doing to cultivate the very thing that will make us happier? The one thing that makes us happy is a choice to become happy. If life is consciousness and it's within us, then what are we doing? We've got to make the decision to become happy. I make the decision to be happy. Together? I make the decision to be happy. And I remind my face of that decision. Together? And I remind my face of that decision. We have to decide this and not hold back. You know, sometimes we're like a cat on a limb. A cat on a limb, afraid, unwilling to release the past, afraid to go into the future, just stuck there. What do? You got to take action. You got to take an action, a spiritual action. I take a spiritual action on my own behalf. Together, I take a spiritual action on my own behalf. It's a decision that you make to live your life from a different set of values, of criteria. One of the most important things to do is to decide, well, what's success? What's happiness in your life? Happiness is not money or things. How about if you decide that success in your life is not what society deems successful, not getting what it is you wanted even. Martha Creek says, I no longer am working to get what I want, I'm working to what I get. And for me, it's ask for what you want and then work with what you get. Being flexible and being willing to do the dance of life, to not have your life be conditional. I don't care how bonehead the Bears' choices were yesterday in the draft, or what you see in the newspaper, or what that person did, or whatever. These things are not ultimately what chooses happiness for you. Your happiness is an inside choice. It's a simple thing, but it's an important one. It's being willing to let go of the things that make you unhappy. What makes you unhappy? It's a belief system you're tethered to. A belief. One belief. Choose one belief to let go of. Just one. Just a simple one. Ask yourself, okay, what was I taught about myself? What was I taught about life, getting what I want? And choose to change that. When almost 40 years ago, I went down to Cancun. I was in a stuck period in my life, and somebody told me, you need to go to a resort. And I had just enough money to go to a resort. And so I'd never been to a resort before. And so I went there, and what I noticed is that they had windsurfing. Oh, that looked like so much fun. So I went down, and I asked the person there to take a lesson for windsurfing. And this person didn't really want to do their job. So they said, well, have you ever surfed before? And I said, well, no. At that point, I'd never surfed before. Well, you couldn't possibly windsurf. And I slunk away. And about 2 days later, I went back and I said, are you sure I can't do it? Because I watched what they were doing and I thought that could be fun. And they said, well, have you ever sailed a boat before? It's very much like sailing a boat. Never sailed a boat before. No, there's no way if you've not sailed a boat that you could do this. So I slipped away. The last day. When is when over? When When are you going to take a step? When are you going to decide to do that which is in the best interest of your soul? A decision that you make. So I said to the guy, I want to learn how to windsurf. He said, well, I don't have time to teach a lesson. Well, at least give me the rudiments. So he told me how to stand there with it, do the thing, and if you do this, this will happen. If you do that. And it wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but I could grasp it. And so he left me there, and I was there by the dock with my windsurf board, and I put up the sail, and a big gust of wind, and I was right in the water. So I got up again, and I got a big gust of wind, and right in the water. It went on for 45 minutes. I was stubborn. I was determined. I was going to defeat this windsurf board, and I didn't. And I was sore. 45 minutes. And the guy wanders by, and he goes, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm trying to windsurf. I said, but every time the wind comes up, I get thrown in the water. He goes like this. Click. I was tethered to the dock. I couldn't see it. You got a belief system. You got a belief in your subconscious mind. I was disappointed. I was disappointed, and so I'm going to nurture that disappointment and make it into a thing. Nobody in my family ever, if so-and-so, if they could just get their act together, I could be happy. What is it for you? When over? When are you going to untether yourself? But identify something here. Let's let this be a working thing. You know, put one thing into action, just one idea into action. Let go of, and we'll do a little meditation at the end. The picture came to me of a bonfire, a really big bonfire pit, and you take that which you're holding on to, and you put it in there, a belief system, a thought, a false belief, and you put it into the bonfire, and then there's an open door, this room filled with light. Walk through into the room filled with light. These are simple things. Take one idea, put it to work. Just a simple idea. I remember a woman coming to me, my very first church, she said, I've been reading all these books, and she named all these books she'd been reading. She says, and I'm still not able to make this work. And when I talked to her, she'd never done any of the things in the books. She just was reading the books. I said, it's like starving to death reading cookbooks. You read all the recipes, you gotta pick one. Me, I can do one recipe. I can't time all three of them at a time, but I can pick one thing. So what is that one thing? What is the one thing you can let go of? I'm not going to let Uncle Joe decide how happy I am. I'm not going to let the world scene decide how happy I am. You have something that you have to give to this world. You are the outforming of God. Life is the blossoming of consciousness, and you are the blossoming of consciousness. Life is the blossoming of God, and you are the blossoming of God. And it's springtime. It's springtime. Are you enjoying it? Yeah, but it's raining today. If it just would be sunny, I could be happy. Because I can't be happy when it's raining. I've got, what is that stuff? SAD is a seasonal affective disorder. Well, it's okay to have that if you want. You can have that. But then you can just say, oh, gee, I have this going on with me. And I'm still going to be happy. I'm still going to be happy. I'm still going to be happy observing myself with whatever this thing is. You can be the observer. Stand back from that you that you thought you were and decide, oh, I can watch myself be miserable. And you can't stay miserable when you do that. Eckhart Tolle says that the ego can't be conscious. So if you're conscious of what your ego is doing, it stops being your ego. It stops happening. So if you look at something, if you observe it, if you pay attention to it, if you let yourself be aware and fully present with it. Do you know about life, near-death experiences, the life review that people have when they have a near-death experience? You know about that? In our culture, we call it his life passed before his eyes just before he died. That's a very common thing, but it really happens. Hundreds of thousands of people have had near-death experiences, and they all talk about a life review, a time where they see their life and they get to evaluate it. And some interesting things I didn't share at 9 o'clock, but in In Switzerland, they actually found that people who have a fall and then survive it will have sometimes a life review in the 2 seconds between when they fall and when they hit. And it'll last for, in their own experience, for a long period of time. Like it would take minutes or really long time, but it's only a couple of seconds. So in this soul consciousness, in this life review consciousness of a near-death experience, time is a dimension that's malleable. So here, Lou McGear shared in her class a week ago about somebody who had a life review. It was at the end of their life, or they're having this life review where they're looking back over their life, and one of the things that they experienced was what was the most significant event in their life, and they were shocked to see what it was. It wasn't accomplishments or status or how they looked to the world or making anything happen that they thought. It was when they were 7 years old, on their belly, fascinated, absorbed on the ground in the springtime, looking at the ants, appreciating the ants, experiencing the ants. And you're thinking right now, I want to kill the ants. I got ants are coming in. But this, and they ask, what is this? And they ask in meditation, why is this the most important thing in my life? Because you were so fully present and absorbed in life. Life is constantly pushing out. Life is pushing out every moment. Life is constantly pushing out through you. And it's pushing out through those little life forms. And that soul engaged, utterly engaged with what was going on in the now moment and experienced it. You can decide, oh, I can reclaim that. I can reclaim that. When I was 2 years old, I remember, I remember forgetting who I was. I don't know how else to put it. I was 2 years old and I was running, and I fell down, I skinned my knee, and in that moment I went, oh my gosh, there was the one thing I would promise myself I would never forget. I forgot. And it was who I was, and it was like that innate part of yourself, that part of yourself. And the rest of my life ever since is trying to get back there, trying to remember but you can make the decision to remember the who that you are. And it may not be looking at the ants. It may be taking one idea and putting it to work, but getting into action. And it isn't necessarily something that's overtly spiritual. We're doing the Unexpected Income program, and Edwene Gaines has the CDs. They're out in the lobby, and I often talk about her, and I like to say I knew her when she was poor. We were students in ministerial school, and she talked about the experience she had with her daughter. They were out of food, and her daughter says, Mom, we're out of food. There's nothing in the refrigerator. And she said, well, I'll go do some spiritual work on it. She says, Mom, we're out of food. What are you doing? Saying affirmations. We got to get some food. She says, now you just, I'm going to go do this. Well, her daughter said a few choice things and stormed out the door and was gone for a couple of hours. Well, Edwene was dutifully saying her affirmations. It was all wonderful. And then a phone call rang about 90 minutes later, and it was the local supermarket saying, you have won $200 in groceries. And she hadn't even applied for it. It was a raffle. It was a raffle, a random raffle. And so her daughter came back, and she said, you come with me. We're going to give thanks to God for being supplied. And she said, well, while you're thanking God, you should thank a daughter who drove down to the supermarket and filled out 100 slips. That's how it happened. So, take action. Take some action. Untether yourself. Take some action. What can you do? What can you do? What in your life can you take action to get out of that consciousness that you've been stuck in? You don't have to stay there. I talked about near-death experiences. There was another near-death experience I read about as a college student, and his whole life was about partying and self-indulgence. And one morning, he was rock climbing. He was in Colorado. He was rock climbing, but he was really hungover, and he slipped and he fell. And in that period of time that he fell, his life passed before him. And he said that the word that came to him for what he saw was yuck.
Oh.
And he said, I realized that the next time I had a life review, because he was fine, he got over it, I don't want it to be yuck. When your life review happens, and I don't want to make this too morbid, but when your life review happens, what are you going to value? What is the question that's going to be answered? How much love did you leave? Is there more love in this world now than before you came in? And I don't mean, you say, what do you mean love? Love could be building a business that serves people. Love could be volunteering at the library and giving a sunny smile to people. Love can be the most simple things, because here's the truth about happiness. The little things are the big things. The little things are the big things. What did Jesus say? If you're faithful in the little things, you'll be given greater things as well. If you're faithful in the little things, and what are those little things? Showing up, being present. She mentioned your word is your wand in that song. Keeping your word. Keeping your word about little things. You say, oh, that's not important. I want the big things. No, the little things are the big things. Charles Fillmore said that success in life is a matter of an aggregate of successive small pushes that build momentum. And there's a study, business study, they call this the flywheel effect in successful businesses. It's a bunch of little choices. It's not some big thing. And they imagine a big flywheel, and you're pushing it, and eventually it gets a momentum in itself. The little things are the big things, but it's about keeping your word, showing up, saying you're going to do something. Edwene Gaines again, saying you're going to show up and then doing what you're going to say. She was early in her career as a prosperity teacher. She had the same policy she has today, which is anybody, any organization can invite her to speak, and as long as they give her X% of the love offering, she comes, whatever it is. And she got a call from a little study group, a little Unity study group in a rural area in the Great Plains. The group was only, 12, 15 people. And they invited her to come. She knew she was going to take a bath financially in going there, but she said, I'll be glad to come. And she was willing to come. And then a week or two, or this was like many months in advance, she got a phone call from South Africa. There was a week-long symposium by a very wealthy organization. They'd heard tapes of her speaking, and they were impressed, and they were going to fly her first class to South Africa to stay in a resort, and she could take tours of South Africa. It was the most fabulous experience. It was early enough in her career that this would be a huge leap forward in her success. It was the same week as the little group, but she knew there was no problem there because they could easily change. There's plenty of months in between. She calls them up, and in an inimitable way they said, no, I'm sorry, we've already printed our bulletin and announced it, so no, you have to come on that date. So, well, can't we? And she did. She tried to negotiate with them, and they wouldn't budge. And she knew that it was a test. She said, I don't think God tests, our own soul tests us. And she said, I kept saying, I'm a woman of integrity. My word is my wand. I do what I say I'm going to do. I keep my commitments. I keep my agreements. So she got off the phone. She called up South Africa. She never had another chance to go back there to this organization. And she shows up a few months later. Now, she's had plenty of weeks to process her anger, to do all that forgiveness stuff that she teaches, and to release it. And she showed up. There's only a dozen people there. A dozen people. And she did it. She did it graciously. She went home. She knew that her word was her wand, etc. And then it was 2-3 years later, she found out that I believe 5 people out of those dozen people that showed up for a workshop became Unity ministers, and they attributed it to that day.
Oh my goodness.
Now, Jesus said, lay up treasures, not on earth, but where moth and rust cannot destroy, where thieves cannot break in and steal. So redefine what success is to you. Success is not what the world tells you is successful. We all know people who have those criteria filled and they're miserable. Success is not getting what you want, but more than even wanting what you get, it's working with what you get, working with it, seeing it as the raw materials out of which you're going to create something, and simplifying your life, and taking care of yourself, and appreciating the precious you that you are, and not driving yourself silly. You know, people who go through their near-death experiences, happiness is a function of enjoying life. And I'm not talking about frivolousness, I'm not talking about self-indulgence, I'm talking about enjoying life. Where in your life can you bring more appreciation to that precious self that you are? Maybe a little less of a critical eye. Realize that if you are a successful person, the successful people are like somebody climbing up a mountain and they're halfway. They're climbing up that mountain successfully, but they're covered with dust. They got maybe some bruises in there. They may not smell too good either. They're on their way up the mountain. You don't judge yourself in the middle of the process. Think of the Holy Family going from Nazareth down to Bethlehem. What was that like? You know, there were no Holiday Inns. The process of growing through life is a process of unfoldment with lots of mistakes. And ask yourself, what am I doing to take care of myself? What am I doing to rest? Isaiah says, in returning and rest is how you will be saved. In quiet and confidence you will find your strength. In returning and rest. Rest. Do you really rest? Do you really rest? I actually was brought into the ministerial school to teach the ministerial school students a few years ago how to rest. How to create balance in their lives. How to have... And I learned it, I told them this, from my minister when I was a church organist. She was in the hospital 2 or 3 times for exhaustion. And finally the board sat her down, because the third time the doctor said, you know, you could be killing yourself. And they sat her down, they said, and they were joking, sort of. They said, we will fire you if you don't do these things. And they made her sign a contract that said she took 1 day a week where she wouldn't do anything having to do with the church, 1 week a month and 1 month a year. And she followed that. She followed that. And when I was in my first church, and I got my respiratory ailment, which taught me this firsthand. I mean, not that I should have learned it secondhand from her. Oh, I got it. I got it. So in your life, what are you doing? What are you doing to schedule the time? You know, I've shared, I'm going to be going on a silent retreat. I'm going to be going to a 5-story castle outside of Dubuque in the middle of a cornfield with the Trappist monks for 9 days in silence. I mean, I would prefer that to Disney World at this point in my life. But just being. But you don't have to do that. You can do something that nurtures your soul, that gives you a sense of balance, that gives your soul some pleasure. You know? Where are you living your life from? You live it from your personality self. Your personality self is like a suit of clothes. You know, and in our lifetimes we actually change our personalities. And that's all fine. It's almost like, you know, you trade off. Think about it. We have many lifetimes within this lifetime. But your soul is what you take with you. What are you doing to nurture your soul? You know, Jesus taught us about what happiness was. And He taught us about happiness in something that has been misunderstood and misquoted and misinterpreted, I think, for 2,000 years. They're called the Beatitudes. But it's really the Be Happy-tudes. Because be happy-tude. You know, it's because, remember they all start with, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the meek. It isn't blessed. It's not blessed at all. The word was actually an exclamation that meant, oh, how great it is. Oh, how happy you are. It really meant happy is the person who is, like hip, hip, hooray. It's an exclamatory thing. But then the stuff he says you should be happy about is, let's just be honest, a little bit weird. So happy are you when you know you need spirituality. The higher kingdom belongs to you. So happy are those who are grieving. They will be comforted. So happy are the gentle and non-resistant. They will inherit the earth. So happy are those who hunger and thirst for goodness. They will be completely satisfied. So happy are those who give mercy. They'll receive it. So happy are those whose hearts are pure. They'll see God. So happy are the peace workers. They'll be seen as God's children. So happy are those who've been treated badly for the sake of a higher ideal. The higher kingdom belongs to them. So happy are you when others put you down, reject you, or gossip about you maliciously because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because you're going to receive a great and heavenly compensation. And just remember this, that's how badly the prophets before your time were treated. He's actually probably smiling when he's telling them that. He's basically saying, it's okay to feel your feelings, but realize the sun shines and the rain falls, he said, on the good and the bad alike. And that includes in your life. But you decide, you choose what you're going to do with those experiences and how you're going to use them. And it's how you show up in that moment that makes the difference with your life review. But what do you do with these false beliefs, these things tethering you to the dock, these things that are holding you back? Well, you can throw them in the bonfire. We'll do that now in meditation. We throw them in and then get lighter. Just get lighter. So just close your eyes and open your heart and move into this moment. And maybe a few moments ago you identified something that you want to let go of. Could be a limiting belief. Could be something you're holding on to, or a fear from the future, the past, something you won't let go of. Could be a self-image. But notice now that in front of you there is a huge, beautiful, warming, and lovely bonfire. And you can take whatever this is and you can thrust it into this fire. And it's a spiritual fire, so it's consumed utterly. It's released. And you're so much lighter. You're so much freer. And it just feels good. It just feels good to let this go. And if some other ones come up, you throw those on there too. I loose you, I let you go, I free you, I release you. And I'm set free. Thank you, God. So it is. Oh, and now I want you to take a nice deep breath. And as you breathe out, let go of everything in your hands. And just open your hands. And let your open hands remind you of your open heart, your open energy. And take one more deep breath and let it out. And my intention is that we're all going to be happier at the end of this meditation than at the beginning. Because we're going to choose to experience happiness. Happiness is an inside choice, not conditional or dependent upon things looking any particular way. And we decide right now how happy we want to be. And so we ask ourselves, if I had a happy look on my face, just a gentle, sweet, calm, happy look, what would my face look like? And remind your face of that happiness. Just let your face smile. Put a smile on your face, just a little bit. Gentle, peaceful. Just notice how it lifts you up a little bit. Imagine your eyes smiling, with your eyes closed. With your eyes smile a little bit. And feel a smile in your heart. If your heart could smile, how would it feel? Smile on your face, and your eyes, and your heart. If your thoughts could have a smile. What would your mind be like if it could smile? Smile on your face, your eyes smiling. Gentle smile in your heart and your mind and your thoughts. And now take this smiling energy, this beneficent, beatific energy, and smile in whatever part of the body that needs prayer and healing. And imagine your whole energy field smiling. It's radiating all around you. This is the expression of my innermost self. Myself, my whole being is smiling. And I take a moment reminding myself, perhaps returning to these different expressions of smiling. And I just observe how this changes my energy, my vibration, my thought, and how I look. Just smile. Smile in your thoughts. Smile in your feelings, your heart. Let your whole beingness radiate this gently happy energy. There may be rain outside, but smile like the flowers smile in the rain. They like it. They like the sunshine just as much.